This word was a favorite of his. Speaking to me once of Sister Nivedita's violence, he added, but there could be no doubt of her devotion to my people. I have seen her, a delicately nurtured Lawai, living uncomplaining and cheerful in conditions of sheer squalor. And, his face brightened, she could be ferocious at any wrong or injustice done to my people. Last year's 285 he signed himself, wishing your people, whom I love, not success, but remorse. And man, until Mr. Winston Churchill in the Second World War, in any country, ever traveled so far, so often, and with huge range and variety of interesting experience, or such, welcomes. He accepted with immense enjoyment the position accorded to him, as of some unofficial ambassador, with an authority and prestige greater than belonged to any official envoy. He was India's High Commissioner to the world at large. He had always been almost uniquely fortunate in his material circumstances. Toil and poverty had been things be merely observed in others, and he took this universality of recognition with the royal assumption of it as his due, which occasionally drew a smile from his ow.n. countrymen as well as critics in the lands he visited. Yet his dignity throughout, his awareness of the significance of what he was seeing, preserved him from lapses. And he made India respected and regarded as never before, while he himself shook off the last shreds of whatever remained to him of narrow and national prejudices, and almost become the first completely emancipated citizen of the whole world. His criticisms, whether of British or American or Indian habits and actions, were free from the personal and local, and they can be read without resentment and always with profit even by those whom the one touch most. Nearly. In India, he had differed from Gandhi politically, but the two men were friends, each recognizing the other's patriotism and integrity. To this great soul in a beggar's garb, Tagore paid tribute in a two-petal address at Santiniketan on Mahatmaji's 70th birthday in 1938. They met from time to time, and on February 17, 1940, Gandhi and his wife visited the poet and there was a formal reception in the mango grove. We accept you as our ow.n, as one belonging to all humanity. Gandhi replied, even though I call this visit a pilgrimage. I am no stranger here. I feel as if I had come to my home. I have received Gurudev's blessings and my heart is full to the brim with joy. 286 Rabindranath Tagore in England, after its long eclipse, Tagore's reputation had been steadily returning. More and more I see was ge1,1 arrowly felt chat, whatever the real worth of his poetry might ultimately prove to be, in him was a most unusual personality, marked by nobility of thought and attitude. Nobility had been dully 1/16 out of fashion, and Tagore was essentially noble not merely in presence, though, as a Western poet once remarked, when he came into the room he made us all look alarmed mean. He sought for the whole of mankind a high-tea life and civilization, and combined a Puritan austerity of conduct in himself with the widest and most catholic understanding of literature and speculation. The West felt that it would not judge of his work. The poems in translation, at any rate, did not seem to amount to a tremendous deal, but it mule feel the greatness of his mind and soul. There had been in India much misunderstanding, and even resentment, of the fact that the University of Oxford had allowed him to visit it more than once, and in 1930 to deliver the Hibbert Lectures, yet had not made him one of its doctors. The time has come when this can be explained. Because of his return of high knighthood, it believed that he would refuse an honor from a British ars, the university was unwilling to lay itself open to a snub. Nevertheless, Oxford was anxious to offer him a degree, and in 1926 Robert Bridges, the PMT laureate, was asked to sound him privately as to why whether he would accept it. Tagore was then in Budapest, and Bridges' letter, of which a copy lies before me, was unfortunately worded. Bridges stated, correctly, that the question of the degree had been discussed informally, but that the 1cmmt be a formal proposal and the required lapse of time before the vote was taken. So long as the degree had not been actually approved, it was open to the Hebdomadal Council to reject it at the last moment, and Bridges felt that he could not commit the university or ity, of which he was merely a distinguished private member, further than to ask Tagore if he were coming to England, as there was a proposal to give him an Oxford degree. Last year's 287 he went further than this however, and added, "I think your election is very uncertain." Tagore not unnaturally took Th's as I suggestion that he howled come to England on the chance of the university offering him a degree, which might make him L9 Polish if this did not happen, and he replied with some abruptness that it was not convenient for him to come. Oxford's apparent coldness seemed all the greater, by contrast with the warmth and enthusiasm which surrounded him in Budapest. For some year, both parties felt the other had been less than courteous. But friends who knew the facts did not let he matter rest, and in 1940 the university, not merely with readiness but with the utmost cordiality, decided to do what it had done only twice before in its long history, and to grant a degree in absence. It deputed Sir Maurice Quire and Sir Sivapalli Radhakrishnan to hold a S.J. Chale convocation at Santiniketan, where Tagore was made a Doctor of Literature of the University of Oxford. Few events in his life gave him greater pleasure. In September, Rabindranath left for Kalimpong, where on the 27th, he fell gravely ill. He was brought to Calcutta, and nursed back to some health, that he could return to Santi-Niktan. During his convalescence his mind was active as ever. 2 books of Viri, Rogsigi, and Arogya, Recovery, were written now, and during this year he published 4 other books, 2 of poem, 1 of 3 long short stories, and Chhlcble, delightful reminiscences of his childhood. During the noted vers, poetry to some extent had subsided into almost a secondary place in his activities. Yet he had never ceased to write it, and to write also many other things, in Bengali and English. He had constantly revised or reshaped his older dramas, and produced them himself, and he had written new dramas, mainly lyrical in quality and with abundance of music and pageantry. His poems were always accompanied, always perfect in movement, and they exercised a great influence on the new poets of his land. Unlike Tennyson, whom he resembled in the length of his undisputed reign in letters, Tagore retained high place as the youngest and freshest of 288 Rabindranath Tagore his country's writers, and not even the most revolutionary of them ever wavered in his knowledge that this poet was not merely their greatest but their subtlest and most experimenting mind, always the master whose work must be studied. Puravi, published in 1926, and Mahuya, 1928, rank with his Pabst lyrical writing, and he turned from even these to fresh modes of expression and technique. The splendor of Puravi and the tenderness of Mahui too, says Buddhadev Bose, one of the most distinguished and realist of Bengal's younger writers, were both achieved between 60 and 70. The most magnificent harvest of songs since the Gitarajay Legitima Ilya Gitalai cycle, and in the last 10 years he has devised new modes of lyric expression in prose poems and verses. Even in his very latest books of poems there is a shade of feeling, a tone of thought he had not exploited before. If he had written nothing but the poems and fiction of his last 2 decades, Tagore would have ranked at the head of Bengal's men of letters. But not even such strength and vigor as his could stay forever. 1941 was a year of increasing weakness, and of anxiety to his friends. On April 14, a little before the time, his 80th birthday was celebrated at Santiniketan, and he marked the occasion by his somber and powerful, deeply painful, indictment of the modem and especially the Western world, the crisis in civilization. Almost from his deathbed he voiced his indignation at his country's helplessness and the ignorance and reckless indifference of those who held power. This was hard reading for an Englishman if it were not that some of us knew, not merely what justification underlie the flaming sentences but also that the narrowness which he hated in the West was shriveling away in the devastation of war, ruthless beyond even the wars that have been. His birthday was marked by the publication of 3 more books, one of verse, Janmadine, On My Birthday, Tagore Birthday Number, 1941, p. 102. Last year's 289 one of short stories, GA/PA essay/PA, tales, and the English verse GN of Keelabelli, boyhood days. He could hold a pen no longer and the end was plainly near. He lost consciousness, 5th August, and 2 days later the news, broadcast by radio and special extra editions of papers, throughout watching, and anxious India, preed that he had p.1's ed away. The Jorasunko courtyard and the narrow lanes leading low it were packed with sorrowing crowds and an unending file of men and women made their way to /he chamber where they took their last glance at the man who, insert tcjb.il. L1 Supru words, raised the status of Indians in the comedy of nations. All day the pilgrimage continued, and far I to the night people of all classes came I with gifts or flower 5, the funeral procession tart in the afternoon of that day. The poet, in IKCNAF drawn robes, was laid on an invalid chair for beer, IDC 5 cut to a design by Nandalal Bose, Satanikata 11's Art 1T teacher. Hymns from the Rigveda were chanted for his period before his body left his home, and Ramnanda Chatterjee, the veteran journalist T and his old friend, conducted a brief Brahmo service. Flowers and rice L1 quarter were sprinkled on the bier as it went by, and long before the procession reached Nirntalk 1 burning/1 tit all the approaches were filled. Night had fallen, when at C1 GHT 51 cc and the Rickelsgarn son, Rabindranath Tagore, K11 the final rites with the Mukligna, touching fire to the mouth, and the P, W1 T.1 ILS in CME, and sandalwood was lit. Fire, /I, L11 C1 TH, poet in a fa.n. A song had praised as the friend who W11 TLD one day take him back to dust again, received him. The cremation ended at midnight his only survey /ing son, Rabindranath, left for Santiniketan with th ashes, and on Sunday the Srayada 1 ceremony took place in this home which the poet had made for the spirit of India. The whole world paid tribute to the greatness whose visible presence had finished, to his majestic person and long life of leal distinction. Not a man only but an age had made its way at last into farewell to a departing spirit. 19290 Rabindranath Tagore History. He reached a hand to the Mughal dynasty, of which Ram Mohan Roy, his father's and grandfather's friend, had been the accredited ambassador in London, and in his poetry and teaching he recalled and equalled the poets and rishis of India's antiquity. The Vedic singers and priests, Vi1 Lamilti, and K. Tridasa and Kabir and the Vaishnavas. The international recognition of his quality was well mirrored in the commemoration meeting in London, of which I had the honour to be chairman. J. shall certainly never again preside over such a platform. Mr. Maskey was on my right, the Chi 1, SA Ambassador Lin my left, and they were supported High Drive and Grin, the Dean of Canterbury, E.M. Forster. King L.C.Y. Martin, Surendranath Ganguly, and many other /Helen Kirkpatrick was among the speakers. And Beatrix Lehman recited FRNM his poem. The K-1N, F whether he was a great poet might be undecided, but all knew that he had been an outstanding figure and a /airy brave and emancipated man. He had summed up in himself a whole age, in which J11 Dia had moved into the modern world. If I may be permitted one further personal reference, as I said in the broadcast message I was asked to send across the as I felt present, not merely at the Srayada of my friend and my Unker's friend, but at the Srayada of an epoch. To the new India that is coming much of high work will make little appeal, it will ecm luxurious and lacking in strength and power, much of it enervating and effeminate and trivial after the terrible years through which the nations have lived. Yet it cannot be pu head a-idear, dd1 me said, for all high work and life w1 rc2 duly interwoven with India's own life, it reviews, high-toria, well as literature. Tagore-ometime, t half grudged the detiny which made him a leader. I am a poet by temperament, but the tar guiding my destiny I dash. Extremely practical in its influence, and it never really understands me. One at WA as a man that he was greatest of all, and in his Lati 2 decades ROE to symbolic stature. He saw clearly what is now evident to everyone, the lack of sympathy between East and West, which letter to me, November 25, 1915. Last year's 291 political conditions had brought about. What is radically wrong with our rulers is this: they are fully aware that they do not know us, and yet they do not care to know us. 1. But he did not acquit his own people of blame, for weak ones is not reason for pity merely, it is reason for censure. Weakness is heinous because it is a menace to the strong and the surest cause of downfall for others. It is a moral duty for every race to cultivate strength, so as to help the world's balance of power to remain even. We are doing England the greatest disservice possible by making it easy for her to despise us and yet to rule, to feel very little sympathy for us and yet to judge us. 2. His I1D and being were rooted in India. He was at home with the forest sages and the men and women of Haroi, legend. But his genius was a tree whose branches spread to every land and time, and his Catholicity was as great as his courage. In politics, in education, in ethics, and social reconstruction, his findings were usually untainted by nationalist prejudice. His wisdom will be seen ever more clearly as the centuries pass. He died before his country had gained her political freedom. But he himself had found his own freedom long ago. Letl, Rs to a friend p. 76. Ibid, p. 62, 2. Epilogue. The author L.F. Mortlun ADD1 Tink WORLS. Upon So Me Clanku, a field, of Ma CS of poetry, lectures, letters A/1 CLLA, UB Tanchal Trikat 11A, of NCCCT, rather a stimulu, than an Odluntian 111, 1 Ukmi Ratkwan than a master /1 of 111's FO1C1G Enricade, has SA1DL11 SRC dotted pers ACD1 ARMJ, IMP1 RCJ. More THM con /in CJ. He enrally TNC 1.111 GCL1 TNHA film LLPHR or a 111.111 F Science. But the union of 11 angle 1U, L1TCR.IR, RMCR, 111th CRDLLFLLUTC TUD 1Ls PFXJ Lurk and Art, BLTL Illumined 11 LLH Burning Thu 1 ASMA, 10 All Thing, 11101.D and OC1.T. Lcom 111 ed to form 01C1F the NWT FA C111 at 111 GPC1 Lnalitic, of the 1111C-Techn C-Entry. The man himself Uktama, of Hyographed Il Makr. Full or N Trill C colon. Kendur, dot in LCH.11M. T11C words are Frederick Hertins and R. Psi Arc about John R. Ukin. I 1 will J alter them in OMC for C, but there is a Sudakian Apo 1 TCNC dash dot, about them to make Rabindranath General PU 1 T1011 clear. He not merely the lineal JECC Enyant of the old Indian RI1/IIS, his admirer, Diem, he WA, UCH a typical man of letter. E1N of M1 Selenio letter. Although C, Entally a poet, we can find among high dash dot, T Europe can see contemporary. Of any /Oluminu writer, output, a GRC1T deal INECC, arily PR01 Inc eel in C character and appeal, 1H final place in the writer, own literature MMT be left to H1 own countrymen. But where high work has gone out into the wider world, a foreigner's judgment may be of value, so, though the main part of what I fed entitled to S.Ha, Ben, aid incidentally, in my detailed criticism of his Boo-S, yet something in the nature of Umri is now called for. Tagore's dramas fall into three main groups, the earliest, non-symbolic, of which Sacrifice is the B.T. as drama, John Ruskin, English Men of Letters, p. 2. Epilogue 293 and Kshatriyanjati in Malini the loveliest as poetry. All of these, except Malini, are in blank verse. They are of the Shakespearean type, with 5 acts. 2. The group of short pramas based on Sanskrit, or, in the case of Sathi later, heroic story. These arc in rhymed couplets and are short. 3. The later dramas, all in prose, which are symbolical. Whatever jerk of human intera, T was present in the earlier plays is ftdmg out, ideas gain the mastery, alm T the monopoly, of Ti1e poets, Tage. Taking the longer dramas, whether blank verse or prose that I. Group 1 and 3. It wants to be noted that they do not mater form. Aeilani is almost an exception, and chit reing di. As pre.ent English, but not in Bengali, quite an exception. The blank ver dash, plays take over the Ellen-Wundthan model, E5 Chile as we find it in the lesser play. H. Nay, the multiplicity of scenes, many of them representing no real break or division. 111 The action, the subplants. The welter of declamation. The talk distracts attention and impatly rr, J11 The characters. From the Elizabethan Dram 1, at for TNCCE, Enli the only European drama known ten him at, IRT hand, Rabindranath got his rags of convention, rag, HNG gone out TF fashion. This makes these earlier dramas, EEM curiously old, as they did when translated into INPL 1H. The prose dramas, though equally weak in construction, except the free current, have escaped from both Elizabethan and Sanknt models. It is unfair and unsatisfactory to conjure them 5 imply as literature, for they were very much in line wi1h that contemporary movement which strove to make the drama a synthesis of all the arts pageant and scenery. De one sing and costume and music, being as essential as the words. Just a dash. Many of Rabindranath's later songs seem nothing on the printed page, but when winged with their own haunting tunes carry the mind far out and float it along rainy dark skies or place it beneath a blazing heaven, on a cracked parched earth that is famishing and craving showers. So many of these pageant plays, which read more or less thinly, when seen are 294 Rabindranath Tagore a delight which never falters from the first word to the last. Both in the case of his songs and these plays, the poet is entitled to every bit of credit for his many-sided success, for the tune and the song, the play and the pageant, were twin-born, and neither element is more essential than the other. This development of his drama brought his PRME plays into line with the most modern drama of the world. It had been an independent development, in the main, but he was well aware of what was happening outside India, and to his mind a hint was more than a full exposition is to most poets. Bengal has a culture of its own, unique in India, an L.A. Tagore play or pageant wa something that Yo 111 could not see anywhere in the world. Artists the best known in India, some of them well known in Europe had helped in the color scheme and grouping. Dinu and the poet had trained the choir. The whole / as a family festival, full of friendliness as well as beauty. That delightful child of 10, so realistically and cleverly playing the part of the prisoner Autumn 11 Festival, was the poet's grandson. The king, of course, was Gaganendranath, who, black and white drawings of cloudy trace at H1 Malayan forests were a line as his acting. Thakur Dada was either Abanindranath, who 5 paintings all India knew, or else Dinu, the tree Yuri of my songs. The rest were teachers from Santiniketan, the poet's friends, neighbors, and colleagues of many years. The boys and girl, were the children of the school or of the Taft, happily growing up together. 111, that place of dream, with 1,000 golden memories linking the years together. Alas that such a vision should perish with this generation or, at best, should have ib brightness blurred. Allah! That we should have to judge it from the 5 IDE of literature only, as the botany tea looks at the dried heath flower which once grew where its fellows in myriads stained the hillside and the ferns waved green fronds above the beck. Taking simply the printed page, then, it is to be noted that in these latest dramas the dramatic fire is dying after epilogue 295, its flashing intensity in Sathi and Karna and Kunti, plays which we have still to consider. Also, he mixed his lasting stuff with whims and fads of his own, streaking everything with thread of caprice. He did not like this or that class of men, the fact appears repeatedly. He used one theme, on person or set of persons, again and again. I sometimes feel as if he had written only one play since Karna and KL.4 NTI, as if each successive play were just a redaction of the previous one. This, of course, is by no means the case, but he only once broke ground that was really new, in the free current. His own countrymen do not rank Rabindranath's dramas high, which is a reason why a foreigner should be chary of praising them. But, although they are literary dramas, it is not true that they are literary exercises, out of touch with life. His indebtedness to Bengal, to something deeper and truer than books, show in many qualities of his work, and shows especially in one quality which is very rich in all his poetry, but richest of all in high dramas. Let the reader imagine himself at one of those most characteristic focuses of village life, the mchis, or religious fairs. The whole country's d. He has poured out its inhabitants, and still new crowds are making towards the place. There is some religious center to all this swarm of people, but at I5 the side shows that will be remembered longest. Here is a mendicant chanting an episode from the Rayamiyana, vernacularized into a toss of rhymes. Over there are Vaishnavas improvising a hymn, a countryman goes PMTU, singing one of Ramaprasad's clashing of puns on cause names, omitting that sounds, and is, very like a Bengali version of Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled pepper. These are Rabindranath's people. And they have a great gift of folk drama, of reality racy extemporization, of dialogue which comes straight from the road or the bazaar. This gift, very living one, was his, and came to him directly from his motherland, out of whose soil it seems to spring spontaneously. He has taken the flyy, spirit of Bengal, into poetry. It appears more or less mixed in the subplots of his earlier plays. But it shows better in 296 Rabindranath Tagore. His dialogues, he's Yakotuk, one brief, CCNCS translated almost untalhed, or so it would seem, though, of course, the poet's art has been skillfully at work out of life onto the stage. Students. That SC are easy to act, NL are the Delhi and HT or I icon /Ws /, a one whose crypt is a longer example of this genre, alto CTHCR sucks : full. But TBI-IJC of high genius reached its H1 GHCTCPRC 1,1 and the free current. He IEERGA /C his JRAM TT1C gift DC /CH mint, or even a fair chance. And it one's MT. L1 TED Aruna that contract 11 of form is MOT Masterly ANJ the Alegmai kept I11 place, a contributory but not RUL 111G and obtrusi /E. And BCT of all at I the 1 TC 111, H1CH the very breadth of his Law 11D has found Jramatic CXPRC SIL L, 111 A, 01 CC or Hey different Da CS, Linglinru, 111 the Higalrani. Beth Thesgup, the car TPLA, and the Lassie /T, HL /CAGR -: deal CFACH1 ECMC1T. The earlier group abound in poetry, and in T, 1 CIRUB group. The Jidarar, PLA1:C /IIOA11 GAD, the Kunkatli 1 Re 1 /D/ and /Ldlini 8 Knob C literature. Dramatic or beautiful passage and for CS are cry many the S111 NA1: lonely pa /1011 oven, CRAGA1 NT the natural war. D. The Lati interview BCTWCC11 Ragupti and Kahmankar. Dija 1, : Nfidnt and Patubnt Indra H no longer Urhdra, her Grajul Umal 111 G of the K, /E // hitch he feel, that kchou at h1rn elf to umsil for her. Manai // a / and the c, re only a few of many li 1c thing. 1 he later plays lay bare a lofty attitude toward dash, ide, and rc / eel a mind moving only on the high t-plane lf thought and feeling. They ha / either 0 wn way of t1 ri 11 geek motio 11, by the frequently 11 es, of that impel world which amal / cl1 ild 1 h purity and eagerns gather dash. About him, by the omelihnes of the martyr prince 111 the free current. And by the loyalty of I brother by adoption. But it I in the horde play dash, of group, 2, that Rabindranath sh0 highest powen, a dramedy t. These with tuties recapture more than verisimilitude, they recapture life it, eelf, and their ariety is remarkable. Untramlatable. Say, Laughter and Caprice Epilogue 297. All that cr1 and b8 against them is that their stage and cast are restricted and meager, and their presentation of life fragmentary and detached. I turn to general consideration of his work. The heavies / clrn and t again t him, and the oiction that has to be faccd at the outset, his monotony. This is partly accounted for by the overwhelming abundance of his work. There are few, ap in his long record of unpaused activity. His mind never la fallow. Unsect, why? Long for a fresh accumua, at one on of thought or exp re, ce. The moderate output of a poet like Milton, with m111 wident I11 enab, house a nun with each poem, point 1 me defy 11 it 1 lvance or addition. But with Rabindranath ct. Rebok slides into the next, all the mental links seem prccnti01 the actually written word, the reader is rarely cd. The change is often so slight that the new honk em repetition of the last one. This fact should in learn be remembered when we gird against his sameness. TL1CRCI 110 1MCNC, but fine variety, if we take till p, J.11-0 fus and Clyatri jada together, though there is a dgatning amok if we take tire post office and A11 tum 11 F1 TL and plyilg 11 I together. Nevertheless, the monotony one's real. So far as I could, I have C01 sealed it for my readers AJ, yet enough has remained for me to feel as if I should he apologetic for a monotony which must have gravely flawed my pages, apart from fault comma, of my own. Rabindranath rare, rested content with a thing WDL done once. Such images as that of earth as a mother have their patho frayed by constant recurrence, even though each epirosi occurrence is in itself touching and beautiful. It may be tacked generally that he explores and exploit one emotion far too much, that of mother and son for each other. Nor is this by any means his only offense of the kind. The nuptials of the soul with its ultimate destiny are splendidly envisaged by him, with a wealth of voluptuous lovely detail. But he has done this very often. Many of his Western readers practically ceased their reading of him with his fine translation of Kabir. This 298 RTFB/Rabindranath Tagore was raps because they found in that nobly virile poet, set forth with a greater sincerity than we can achieve Tita, many of the similes that seem to be Abindranath's stock ton trade. When Kabir hears the drum of his lord beating to, on him, he writes out of the life of his time, when the AST kettledrums of Chittor announced over echoing leagues the departure and return of the Rajput chieftain, and when the drums beat daily before the fortress palaces and tents of the Musulman sultans and 111 Vaders. But Rabindranath's drums are literary drums. Not actual, the Imali ones 1 DEP tech removed from life. And is the war for the removal. Not so with his lamps and flutes, his dances and lotuses, which still see /ist. But Kabir A1D the Vabing Arns were B1 rehim with these. A literature must get new thought, or stagnate. Unelk sa fresh stream runs strongly through 1T, it clog. And Bengali poetry remind one too much of though trikams which are choked, Ith water hyacinth a thick ma of violet blue mo cl, L1111 lana site in B, Engel today. The nunopini of Rangli H poetry is a monotony of fashion. The nunc s of each generation, the subtle change of attitude, the RT111G trick of fra e cry quickly get ca, HT, and GRNWA, tail a anything that thy super. Led. In English poetry although elo ely word whi, h brought yuka breath or frclrncsa pre slash, food, racin. Ride and a series of othel, r, 1 nd 11 ati /c of youth and eager movement all the nco gorm gift of looking at the familiar world alertly and dc cre 111g the, 1 ght in crhp language the c thing, ungru a dull and common a. The Victorian overuse of golden or of the glory of, 111 the c until plhlci modelled on such a, tcnny once, he reached the glory of a ham. Or Browning's, Lord of the Ground, a toddy want glory there. But we need not go back beyond our own age. The dogged resolve to be contemporary always and strictly contemporary aware of pylons, until they became two, epilogue 299 fai nilly are in the landscape, and machinery, interpreting everything terms of physical and especially political imagery, all these things, which marked the Georgians' successors, was dating even before the Second World War ended. There is nothing unprecedented in this. The Elizabethan poet could note of his mistress, that the star chamber of her eyes robs subjects of their liberties, as poet of our time might note that death was making out his ration cards. Such ephemeral freshness, often immediately effective, soon passes. But 11 Yenian poetry has a monotony of tradition. If these words are quoted by any young Bengali poet who is now where Rabindranath was when he was writing his evening songs, I would if I may without offence urge him to let Radha rest from her age-long journeyings through the pelting nights of Sriam. And beg him to leave Sakuntala to water her flowers immortally in Kalidasa's pages, and nowhere else. Also, let him describe a storm without hearing a thundering chariot drive along the heavenly ways, and without hearing a mighty conch blown or the trumpeting of Indra's elephant. Let him rid his 4ts once for all of the plaintive pest of cowherds and lost tr1 velar. Above all, let him beware of lotus. In England we love roses as much as ever, but poets have long, ed to talk about them. All this is an oblique criticism of Rabindranath. But to finish the counsel, it I may if after all this, the young poet of our thought turns to Rabindranath, he will tin a guide who will show him how to look at the world and to show its beauty with a fidelity and a power of moving emotion that few poets have equaled. From Rabindranath's abundance it follows almost necessarily that he is a very unequal poet. This has been vehemently disputed by those who know his work far more thoroughly than I do. They have thought that I referred to technique, and have retorted that he is a far less unequal poet than Wordsworth or Browning, that he is not unequal at all, but that even his early work, even that 300 Rabindranath Tagore which he has prodigally thrown away is well written. All this is true, he hardly ever writes competently, I11 this resembling an English poet for whom he had no great liking, Tennyson. Perhaps, poet of anything approaching HJS. Abundam comma has his co-1b1 competency of technical CXCDLCNCE. T, ABL. Has a debit side. English H. 11 LLLLC avoid as good poets D1. CL, upling // words endmkin CC and Y, flower, and warkr, /T1 underscore R and /CIJ. /JR and Grove. Is a difficult L1 engwig for RHYMRNG. But Bengali IC /trayer L111 only EAY, it one's fuller of RH, me LUND than ECN ltahan. / ler elkin elfin bkngtltc.n. CDLR shortened, and the aim SL1UND can be used a comma, a rhyme 1f the meaning be different. There is ABOAL.T1Y toleration underscore R the really M1NG of U1H seem relau ES as English H, I dash. In 11/I, 2.LLLJTHM. Rab 111 Drina 1H111 Krakask Elvis EAC or, course, by J. LPL1 LAR 111 NG High Freer PRLSL1 DY. For the old comma Krakadirk meter. Further. The meter underscore 1 NCL, Ldlan U-.EARC D11 LD1 HLYCAYJ, NGLS, 111C / Cry CLLLCTC ARC LTFTY student dash. Who can Purdue 1 EA Pa able set, F / CRC comma, 111 half an hour, Florida RAPWRC comma or comma, Lire / did. When 1 AJJ, that then, 1 dash underscore A Takoi C tab / I Kamal did Rundaffers and fra E dash, 1 T111 being that a poet ha L. Re mad before, 1 F he sick dash. Imply uklranu, D imp dash C dot iln. Bengali PCH mu dash T he 011 there guard again dash dot TTH1, CN dash narng CA dash E. RCR, 1 NG 100 LLD more than they Li 1 / CHCL. And the day H-OM 111 G / hen A, HT purport 1011 L, F the pucktree alright Audi / FLTTCN will fall a low in reputation / 1 THB.1 gal hey dash. Or 18th century / E1 was output L CJRRC.TLRH. Med Kuplet poems ha dash. Long ago fallen with LR glee HRC. And a great A, CES, of strength waiting FIR the poet who T1 fen dash. H1, TCCH11 I4 UC hab 1 and not imply 111 high giant mood dash. Having aid all this, I would add emphatically that Rab 1 NLRA 1180 HUE tid. Dang Jayas freedom like a mater, bent it deliberately into lily cult wap and expend L endilkli, and added mon, new Stanla forms than all the other Lingalt poet put together. And Tha his E / 10,1, CUE of those a / /111 ta not imply increase the metrists re-ars on the IDE of CAE, but jagged and broke the verse's smooth flow. His inequality is in his thought and matter. Truth of epilogue 301 matter is essential to truth or style. And the trivial and the whimsical do not furnish the stuff or greatness. For instance, as I have tried to show, supreme drama is not written on a theme hastily improvised from a poet's fads or likings, his P1 currency for a free open-air life or his dislike of officials or machinery. Rabindranath has come far closer to the highest drama when he has taken his theme from ancient legend, finding such a story as that of Chitrangada or of Karna and Kunti ready to high hand, itself grandly sufficient without any eking out with personal idiosum ra /ici. Another fault keeps much of high / most carefully wrought work out of the court of the frettest PC etchery. There are not I11 co-11 id crab / e trake of high dash, early poetry where I think he regard RSIMA2 ination, when working at its loftiest, will be repelled. I am judging by the noble T standards that time, ha G1 / C11U, O that th1 imply dash, C, Parat 1 ve rather than a Baliat condemnation. I think of that un-5 God Cal 111, G the delaying Ediarui, or of Ing Lear, or of Milton's nature rthm me ekms in all L.R function, W. Area of herself. Arli race F glory done and race of hame, and I hall shortly BWRTH them TL at rest. Or, taking Rabindranath's own Hest work, I think of 1111 DK 1111 TI or, NNAH, WER, but still lofty level, the ardours of El Nasi. A naked beauty adored by the king of the gods. If we remember such poetry, there is felt to be more than a breath or Miyamoto. All his Zanana imagery, and his CNDLCS references to the first night of nuptials. I do not care how spiritualist they are, whether they refer to the Bull's union with its own Heba 11 Debatai or with God himself, they cannot stand in the PRCCNCE of the highest poetry, but wither like the hothouse stuff that they are. It is because of the prevalence of all this marriage chamber obsession that The Golden Boat, a book that is crammed with beautiful and accomplished poetry, so that to many Bengalis it is his highest lyrical achievement, is to me a book from which I am glad to escape, into an ampler ether, a diviner air. 302 Rabindranath Tagore. There is yet another gravest fault of all. With all his busyness, all the glancing curiosity of his mind, there went a certain mental laziness, except when deep feeling roused hrm. If, refuse to allow ourselves to be satisfied with the rich and often wonderful beauty of his work, do Linny 116 to srnk back on pillows of such variegated softness. Asking instead hat is its alue for the mind and writ of man, we orten feel there is a slackness somewhere, probably at the pring of thought and conception. His poems rarely fail and beauty of style, but they often f.il in grip. The special failure of c/atri, so fine lyrically. Many of its poems trail, spreading the central conception loosely. He often does not keep control of his mental processes, but lets the thought slide whither it will, prolixly. We have seen how he stops short of dramatic success, when it was within his grasp, in /Fiolini, and else Holcray stops short, because of some lack of power or willingness to concentrate and to stake all on the last throw. He plays too much with externals, with ornamentation. The worst flaw of high later work is this lack of serious intellectual effort. High mastery of expression had Ian been consummate and his metrical accomplishment impeccable. But, more and more, he embroidered the margins of truth, treating it as a missile to be illuminated. Yet Baliaki, Paliataka, Lipiki, Puravi, and /fa/111 Yeath, all books of his last 25 years, showed how amazingly varied, as well as superbly easy, was high workmanship, nor was one inadequately trained by imagination and thought. Lee /LNG empty and fave pieces ide their number not great comparatively, it is their existence at all in the work of maturity that significant. There an enormous body of beautiful work by Rabindranath, probably a larger body of really beautiful work than any other poet can have. It will never cease to delight, and it will keep his name honored. Nevertheless, I find one hard to persuade myself that work which so rests in secondary details, and is so occupied with beauty of ornament, rises into the extremely small class of first-rate poetry, except rarely. If it does so, Epilogue 303 et al., Rabindra:80h's claim to the title of great poet is secure. If it does not do it often, that means only that he is not a Shakespeare or a Sophocles or a Dante. He may well be a Hugo or a Wordsworth, or greater than either. He spoken freely of his faults, but I am well aware that they are shared by English poets, that his prolixity matched by Browning and Wordsworth and his repetition by Swinburne, that his tricks and his overcult of descriptive poetry are faults of living poets whom any intelligent reader can name. Shclky snakes and boats and worms and corpses arc sp. a Rabindranath's feuds and lamps and flowers, and he has a similar run on certain adjectives. Further, Rabindranath's stereotyped technical perfection has been anticipated in the vast mass of Tennyson's later work, while the former always kept a suppleness and lyrical quality that are not present in the English poet's dramatic work and the poorer LCLLS of the King. And I think I understand how his Bengali admirers can make the claim they do. We estimate a poet's work absolutely, but his genius relatively. When a country has produced not a few writers of poetical genius, as Bengal has, and yet one of them towers immeasurably above the rest, dwarfing every other figure, that writer clearly has a very exceptional mind, which enables him to rise superior to circumstances which hampered other fine NDS. In my smaller book, have pointed out how Rabindranath overcame a narrowness of thought inherent in the conditions of life in Bengal, and became a universal poet. But he had other disadvantages, less obvious but no less real. Not only were lyre and thought circumscribed in his land, but his genius was left without guidance, a grave loss to so industrious and cager a reader. There was no literary criticism in Bengal. Politics overshadowed all thought, and the national sensitiveness was so quick that a book was judged, not by its honesty or ability, not by the underscore insight it showed or the help it brought, but solely according as it flattered patriotic vanity. Consequently, literary criticism was either carping, a meticulous examination of a book 304 Rabindranath Tagore sentence by sentence, or else spadefuls of ecstatic praise. Ijul Bengaz showed great fairness and breadth of mind. But this had not found its way into Bengali criticism. But, one t may be said, Rabindranath had another mo learn literature to help 111,111. Ob 1 RNSLY, this might to some XTC and T0 Co 1 RCC, the poorness of Bengali critical standards. C antact //LLH highly DCVCKPCD foreign model may warp LR cramp AL1 Cr1 ERK 111, is RNF.RNCY, but C1 not H.1. 1111 it when full GNN and Robuti. IEN.RNCD1AR.IC1CR1s, Hen 2 Li 1 Miley CL Hli HCJ ILB 1. Erupt, and 11 ones RARC gain to H1 /C Anolar Tan.1 NL for N1111 P.111 S111, for Akuktun Arkal NCC, and their cure. English IND and India ha / Ben OCLL1 Cly Linl.C. D that, E /CN1F the P, 1T1 Caltic Go. Their HTE1 atures arc bound to be CLL1 SCRLL /GCTHCR than any other two literature, are Europe and /1A. /PNFA Poet 1. BUND Lowland in Angli H2, MAM channel of Simeon 1 Cat 1,111 // if that /1 JW11 ID run to /H1CH1T poet that HH Rab 1 NJ Ranath 1111 HT1 NCRC1-1 NGLYB the AMB 1T1 LL1 ol C /LRCR1 CT Irnuld, 11 I. Angli H literature inked well 1 and many // Lee. LTCR /edhim / diametrically, LWW111 G him hollow to pa from MCL.EL, rich incruo /n harmi 11, 1 CS, doing for Bengali /CPC throw 1 HL11M / hat European mu 1, may CL do for L11D 1,11111 H1C. But 1 TALS1 CNCD him badly. He / Atilda 111 truant CH1 CLLYB, JLHTTHMC of our poach who could help HM Li T to AT1 gas CH1 own faults. Keat I would be in CXCCPT1 RNH1T dash, Tats MCLT, 11 degrees 1T were not that 111 the Keat of pound dot. L, /_ M11 U11 there NNLY too much that one. Like the /WALRR.1H1, DR111ADH. And at fur. T1TWT, the poorer SH Lakey that are you at him, the SHCLLE, of the W pound /T wind /A, a later 111 flu 11 cc /11:1011, the NL1H poet who could ha CHCLPRD him MOT to HRCITY and CNMPRC.WN, HC hardly.tud 1 ed, 1F at all. And D true TCD, 1F he did not D /IL.E. So Rab 111 Dranath took O /CR from Angli H poetry surface qual 1T1 CS, metrical nuances, and a CLOCR way of natural dalmatian. Further, it was me. Fortune that the Euro EA1L Jang age which he knew Bel T, Ingshare, was not the richest in criticism it had excellent criticism, of course, long R.W. Livingstone, The Legacy of Brutus, p. 286. Epilogue 305 before he was born, but it was in scattered pockets, not in reefs _. and a foreigner would hardly come across it. So much for what I feel to be his faults. The other side of the account awaits presentation. I hope it has been abundantly laid open in the detailed examination of the poet's many books, and that the reader is no longer in need of conviction. The first thing he will have noted is that, when he escapes from the nuptial chamber imagery, Rabindranath is the most open-air of poets. What I have said of the lack of variety in his work needs, on the side of natural description, a qualification and an explanation. Bengali seasons and landscape have not the variety of English 5.h. TJACTRCC before my veranda will look next October and next March as it looks now, in July. Even the coming of the rains do not bring any rush of flowers. In the jungle the /11 RD1I blossoms, and a few 5.m. Al / and insignificant ground plants, and a scurf of gra appears. In the Ganges Valley, the change is even less, as there is at all times a good deal of LMHGRAS along and beside the waterways and tanks. English Pobe, with the infinite variety of change from month to month, have learnt the intimate lineaments of their mother and have emmed their verse glancing and varied. But a Bengali poet would not have the material to write such a piece as There I a hill bidc the silver Thames. The nearest high landscape will allow him to get is in such a poem as Noon, which ILLA /C translated earlier in this book. This lack of variety is the reason why the Indian countryside docs not speak to English minds, especially poetic minds. No Englishman has written first-class poetry about India. But Indian landscape has its own equal way of excellence, and speaks to Indian minds. It gave Rabindranath the widest horizons of spreading river and stretching plain, and filled his verse with air and space. Just as life in India is more open air than in England, so poetry also, when not a mere literary exercise, is more open air. It has nothing of the fireside, but much of the road. And Rabindranath has been Robert Breda's PA LL4 2306 RA.B. Indranath Tagore, the most filial of all Bengal sons, the one who has drawn most from companionship with his mother. Her elegies, her streams, her bazaars and m/iis, the moon floating superbly. Ocr her mango grncs. The //httcnc, s gathering in her qcnmkic-thcchnc found perfect cpn, ion in high verse, and ha, cm. Him one supreme land cap 11 c1d in the lorry, c edfresh that he one c ser subtlik, of 11h /cr and bird arc hardly m, ed. In atn phcrco. Rinkrl kfek he one dash. Karkli m1 /led. Tra 11 la 11c, ll that c.11 con /e, the depth and cc1 lower of high, crc, ndth cpf1 mag 111 at 1, c interpretation of the natural 1-.mldwhttthcdll1btylcdgla, 1 were, before that l/l1rdwts appropriated for the // rld/lf film tar, and dot, ea1dc beauty hlnv, and rummed flrc1cr1 hardly poibk. FCN Indian RC point wonder, unal dash. The, no point one galt, me dash. Rabindranath dash. Quality. Rabald 1 AR at li, IPRLFE, or RT Duckernan. 4C Amplk. Doc dash. Nut HL /C beauty for it, 1111 AKC. But B? Ka he 1111 A / an attribute of the 1 INE. 1T1, Quiden Dakin, 1W poet CER had a more 11111 MATCF Elton for natural beaut. It Liuld K11C Ben EAY, C /CLL1 N tran L.1 T1011, to how THH. The / single quote C tilde KRN reader, tired R on 11 tal LLHCTLLL / TTH macron 1 T, A, in Italian art Galcric, N, 1e // me, of /L1 Junna, and J full, Lu 11 TL1C, may not care 1R an image dash comma /1D1 comma 1 Rakn 111 colon Ili Indian A, TH1, from nil retard, FHL. Lnuj, L1L.L. D1ILJRCNUD.LED LTTL1L. Emithu, H1.TST, 1111 to till. RC.T, dash dot comma, ET111, what in OCI11 the depth, of OMC fewer T, the loud, at RT high, JCLL1, HTLY apart from, a cornice of rock. But TOU.HC, WH1HRCQTNLL, true 111L.A-T and WC-T abound 1NH1 work, S1TL1NG of TR1.LL, D and LNL. Today on Padrona SBRMK, LCTTRNGTHCCI, not tray to left or right, in all my HMB, IJ now, with all my MML I feel, thy GRAC grow tremblingly on thy body. The Philosophy of Rabindranath Tagore, p. 142. I epilogue. The moon seems far away like a tired traveler as he makes his way, slowly, how slowly, up the empty sand heaped at the river's edge. Or this, from Kathai. The red burning light of fading day, FLMG 111G long shadows, like a bat broad wings, LLYMG westward through the silent sky. 307 or, from the AIM poem, an image of the close friendship between an A5 ed teacher and LW, young disciple, and, a Thunderblatt head banyan heart from the light winds a wandering seed receives, WLRNHWNE great, till with vast boughs and leaves IICOCR, up the aged trek from GHT. Or TLM, a picture of darkness dash, in Arctic solitudes, night come, where there once none to jeep, and, 11, .CANJLLTHCR that doth V1G1L keep WLLHCSU11D1 Osrung, by the E111PY bed 01HCRDE.ID, unwing overhead. 11, 100, and 11th, and LE, KY. But high achievement goes further than this. Bududeb Bose claims that he was the world's greatest lyric poet. And, though LLL high translations I know I once sounds absurd to agree with this, CL Hen L remember his unrivaled variety of lyric MCA his unfailing certainty of touch, the gaiety and LTNCS as well as gravity which were at his command, his power of noble thought and emotion, join ed. To this luxuriance or imagery which varies despite its sameness as the natural world also varies amid repetition dash. Am disposed to believe it. His countrymen find his greatest gifts to be this interpretation of nature and his interpretation of sorrow. It one's the former THLLT is to be the more unhesitatingly accepted. Tagore birthday number, p. 103. 308 Rabindranath Tagore I believe it to be his greatest quality, and the quality in which no other poet surpasses him. It goes very much deeper than the fresh open-air quality of which I have been, speaking, his gift of landscape. He has put his heart 1p, close to the world about him, that his sympathy aims to pass into its body, returning thence charged with a knowledge and subtle understanding that make his language haunted. Looking into nature's face, he remembers. Once the dust that is now his limbs dust that grew her rice and banyans, or was rocked in the way and to of her surge. This is, hat make, the appeal of such poems as Al-Zalai, or / will not let you go, or B.1 IDC the sea. The gift to him of that edge-long Indian belief in many in one Jair nations. But it eloped by though day, and week of continue G, ing on the water. JTI, 111 water that new forms TF life arc cont 111 Uuli and OB, iamly coming into being. And the man who won, familiar with that, Hifting Nilk Slipop D Clement one's 111 the cry flew / of EXI-.TCNCE, the work hop of creation. In the later poems which all the WL, FLDK 11LW, LL, /E and intum 1 te nuc je of nature ha, pa ed into rclig 10 uxperi nce. H1, orc angularly rich in intuition, the subtlety of high, obnation often go 111g to the heart of a matter. T, pension of what one's the very core and reason of things led him in high, bt work away from the surface beauty. It wa dash. Shelley irch for a hidden low /Alines / that made the J/Y11111 T Jalem fluctual beauty a weighing in L1 C on Rabindranath, 11 Nagi Natio 11, during many year when he feel his way toward, a definite experience of realized beauty within his life. He influence of at LCAT 1 of Keeb /poems ha, been more abid 111g still. Like the Grecian very much. The 1JCA appeal 5 to me, that a TH111G which is beautiful gives you the touch of the infin 1TE- teases out of thought. The quality of the infinite is not in extension but in perfection. The unity gives you the idea, and distracts your attention teases you. This teasing kept him from acquiescence conversation. Epilogue 309 in the comparatively easily captured loveliness of the visible world. If I do not write at length about his religious poetry, it is not because I do not feel its beauty and value, but because religious poetry, even more than other poetry, requires sifting by men's experience. In the writing of every fine religious poet, there is a great deal which, though deeply felt by him, is by a later generation felt to be of personal and not universal significance. This or that strain is Anglican or Catholic, Vaishnava or Brahmo, Muslim or Vedantist. Hence the smell of tail incense which one critic has found in Francis Thompson's religious poetry, or the malarial eroticist degree which I think poisons Indian religious poetry. But these complaints do not lie against zero world invisible, we view thee or thou hast made me endless, such is thy pleasure. This deepest truest experience will be proved anew in the experience of each succeeding generation, and as long as man is religious it will stand, whatever creed be held by religious men. This personal experience of religion, and the poise and peace that came when he saw his life to be unified so, to be the work of a greater than any Hibandi Bhai watching over his years, set Rabindranath apart among poets. They were his own experience, not resembling that of any other great poet, and must finally be a chief factor in determining his place among the WORLLS poets. On the other claim which Bengalis make, I am less convinced. The sorrow which his verse has so movingly expressed is his from his own people, a folk to whom fate has not been kind. There is an undertone of sorrow present almost everywhere in his verse, often wailingly present. There was such a wistfulness moving everywhere upon the face of our modern thought, that many felt that the Indian poet expressed their inner selves, their sorrow and disillusion, opening out as we you a way to some deep peace which they have not found. He has more than this, however. He has power of Jilamas e. Gilanjali, 1. 3 Io Rabindranath Tagore setting forth final and irremediable tragedy, the anguish that is implicit in a situation, movingly set forth in isolation. There is the Rajput girl bride, arriving to find her betrothed dead, the flaring torches and the darkness throwing a somber shadow /E are the spirit as we read. /VESEC her sitting statue-like, as her awful death begins, the shouts ringing over the gloomy crematit engrenund. There is the maddened mother opening her eye to look for the dolt she has laid on the regliet. But if a man I to find place among the supreme, HETS. We ask more still. He muti ha-e the power of packing the patho, of a scene into a phrase. See, and a word, this Ra one Endranath docs not lack. But, far re. The PL1ET must be able to make a phrase or a /ord the revelation of a human spirit, of the agony within, and think en Abindranathi tlo. When Karna calls Kunti the mother of Arjuna. Nothing of dar phrase s tabbing force and poignancy h lo t by the alo 1 ve manner of 1 tuc, then, impt, mu he hati real 17 cd that her errand was, n, 1 th that gulf between her and her deserted son laid bare by the L1.ht11111 underscore. CFA, tiered. More PTT-T1 Ry 11 G till, Almo T. H that 11 RCNWRNCNT when high mother, Damite Angui HR1 CRCE, the night, HBCK1K11CC, Tucharig Karna RN all M1L1MH. Or HPEAL4CT//Ma, cry of father. When the TLD1CR, leap FCNR2LI/C her for the pyre. The world ha cry little pak trio of TH1, pitch NFRR1 TCN11 or power of RC cladical 1, Ju TA. Thor 1 T ha dash, much NWRE. 1 T till HA not cry much L, Nkl PTLCTRYA read AI the BT poem, of /Jaliki. L he reader may Leah C Hekn. O concerned with M1 qualilicadral of the Niti, Rtneo that he may 1111 how Tremikndu, the CLA 11N made now. H Rabindranath C /ER lucked, I11 TLML1 Gliton 11 G lay I11, dash hair of the Inmo T mind of did TRC then he won, a great poet indeed, Anu I think he do, ukt. He is. Trong 111 of dot tract idea dash comma, a we held xpc, T111 an Indian. THC, glimmer through early lyric and later drama alike. But hi, thought I Trangeli concrete, easy for a Westerner to follow, crap Gosk his mind has not taken a metaphysical turn. This makes the finding epilogue 311 of resemblances to Western poets attractive and easy. But, to T.A. K an example, when his resemblance to Tennyson has been noted his interest in scientific speculation and discovery, his vast preponderance of decorative work, the long and stead exercise of high poetical faculties we note the dilterance his many-sided touch with active life, the freedom of high mysticism, at any R1TE in its later expressions, from any speculative elements such a, we find 111 vastness, his power, or being aloofly intellectual and lonely. Similarly, when he once put IDE high IDC with Victor Hugo, and we note the volume and formal ariety of the work of both writers and their political energy. And note allo how very much of their work is on a lofty but kill definitely secondary plane, rhetorical or DCCR, tiv or G.L. Actic, their remake divcray CES, of subtler TLHHJ, HT in the Indian. Of more con, tant fire in the Frenchman. To up, he faced both EAT and WLST, filial to both, deeply indebted to both. His PRN11 nalty hereafter will attract H1RDLYK's attention TH111 I'm poetry, so strangely preview, a figure mu he MWBCN poterity sees him. He ha been both or H1 nat N1, and not of it, his genid ha, ben BL, FL1 or L1 and thufl, not of poets and phi. Ofgr, alone but of the common people, yet it ha, Husn FOTCRCD high \VC ter 1 T1 OT1 dot, HT and by E, 1 gli H literature, he ha, ben the me D1 T1 CT01 IAT 10 al /oises, yet HNS to J1H.LC from H1, O, 1, 1 \I, 111 NWRE then 1 angry Eontraver Y. TI1, P, CTRYPRCC1 BTH, 1110T, AR1. L111 Ilmdori of Indian A:11E, CMCNT. Li \111 GA1JE the half do 1 aggregate L names, we may 1.1 C any PNCL we CHW-E and CET out his masterpieces, and FR1M what Rabindranath has already done we can set H.:1 to them C/Jitri I11 I, Tli and the curse at farewell. C and THL F1.1 RC11 CLL to JFR 1.111 C11 a half IE, the Kfud \1, dot sklga. EIENI 11G. Pound 1011 /8, sea waves and the great land storms of Kofpani I, Sathi, Gi 11 Valdirais prayer, and Fud, the opening hell scene of Narak Bayaz, the grim narratives of Kataltai, the quieter beauty cf the stones of Pa/Ataki, the great odes of Baliaki, the poets of Lipiki and Parai and Malmai and scores of dancing songs of 312 Rabindranath Tagore every period of his half-century of incessant activity. The assessment of final values cannot be done in this generaton, but already it is clear that his ultimate place will be not simply among India's poets, but among those of the I-world. Appendix A. Rabindranath's knowledge of English poetry. His reading of English poetry was mostly done in youth and early manhood. He read it little in later life, being anxious to get into wider currents still, those of European literature, and our poets did not attract him. These new poets of yours speak a new language, and after Keats and Shelley I can understand them. I can understand Blunt and Davies and de Lamarck, that is about all. His mind had many affinities with the European mind. When explaining Bengali poetry, he was always quick to bring out at once the points that would seem important to an Englishman. His reading in English poetry, though casual, was very wide. First-hand knowledge of Browning came late, and even then, I suspect, was confined to the short pieces. Browning's influence was considerable, as we have seen, during his most prolific period, but it came from Loken Palit's enthusiasm. Poets have often shown that second-hand 111 fluence can be very effective. He read and liked some Shakespeare. When a boy he had a tutor who used to punish him by locking him up till he had translated a passage of poetry. I won this way. He translated both Kalidasa's Birth of the War God and Shakespeare's Macbeth. Various other plays of Shakespeare's have been mentioned in this book, as known to him. To these can be added Othello, which he found harrowing, too painful to read. Scott's Caney/L.L. Orth, similarly, I cannot read twice. To Wordsworth he liked not enthusiastically, I imagine. He admired the finish of Sarab and Rustum. But his deepest admirations were for Shelley and Keats, among English poets. Conversation. 313-314 Rabindranath/F. Tagore. That he did an immense deal of desultory reading in English. His remarkable conquest of the Lang 11:1 Ge Whitmseys. That conquest in some ways was more apparent in his lectures than in his translations. In his lazul 10 years he hacked to English poetry. For example, he lated admirably T.S. Eltos The Journey, F. the Logi. In my lecture, I took more libcritic. I felt J had my audience, with me. And that in Cura.ccimc1 certainly, they are xil, Kugnsergatng ard, writing, the Atang C is from RCNR. Lee article, written during 1 GNWRC then a genera in of co 1110-1 HRK. Hut the ha /e new NNG of their own. But for D beauty a, ID aki /ment in English 1H11L1 thing 111 high, lecture, at Arns the LCCL of Gittin I.2 and Chitra. TLWET // for T pi degree has TR111 lat 1 on, CCMTLL me perfect in P, 1C and LNN dash. 1, NALE /CL, Li 1 CLL only TH, 11 and lat 1 on of AMA and A1111 T1 Rgach C among H1S later TR111 lat 1 TN, NLLHT01, H1CH arc more, RLE, CARC, and CAUAL. L11J1 and 111 Fluken C. Of C per E, air the deck T, and watched high MMDRIR more CH Stantley than a 1Y European or comma. And add a T hand PC1NH. It 1 dash, the CUKM in LK1GA1T I call H11:1 Adzerlk TLR the /A1H, 1A /AP a dash /H1C Li, 1F dot, CC ilk /1LTN 11A DC1 PLCFSI, ETCRPR do B.1. RTA, the 1 N looking CNFTH dot, /hill 1AA, H more, T parked, A dash, /TR /L.1 H1L no E. 1 NCC 1 T1, and 1 pluck CW the FR111. Hill KAL1 JA1, H1R and the PMT or HH Poetry Hut the 1111 lure.cc of the latter HFTR, LCCP.R Ra 1 NDR, 1, 11T, H1ML fade, I am /E. LLA arc of KAL1, TIA, L1111 Etat 1, comma. But he imu -lethe, comma, rgacT of the old SA11J.R1 TP FRNM Kalita 1 that Rab 111 early YNRK inherited a tradition of Klahorat 1N1J to /Lud 1 at 1, hard for the /VCTCRN critic to do J11T1CC, it, O alien from Nurico _ 1111 ed WA, or CXCCLLCNCC. Yet no competent judl, L1F poetry could read the san-KNT text of TH, M1G/111D11 ta. Without PCRCCPT 1011 of the beauty of IH, .imilk, a, well a dash. Of the extraordinary kill with which each I followed out into every ilk ramification. And there are many poem, in the Golden Boat and Chitrai, in reading which configuration seconds my Rabindranath Tagore, pages 45 and 49 to 51. Appendix A 315 The critic should be on his guard against his natural exasperation. And though he may decide, as Rabindranath's own later judgment apparently did, that selection and simplicity are preferable to elaboration, yet he should see how good the poems are in their own fashion. That Rabindranath owed much to other Bengali or Indian poets, other than the earliest Sanskrit non-dramatic poet and the folk poets of Bengal, among whom I include Ramaprasad, I do not believe. His elder brother Dvijendranath's poetry influenced his early work strongly. And from folk poetry the tradition of the hall poets, religious mendicants, often unlettered, is one which he has specially carried into his own poetry, where it is perhaps the most vernacular strain, a note often of piercing, poignant weakness as the poet's soul calls on God. But high Bengali critics went much too far when they asserted that Rabindranath's style and manner were exotic. One of these, a distinguished scholar, wrote to me, LK /1, born in Litangal. But ma furosi iniskt moferk, in which the 1C /1.1, har JIANV1 ND1 gna CHMCNT, CCCPT. Perhaps, TL culture of the L11A11 I1 L1 111. 3, 111 1DC NFTH 11.1117. I, so eventually NLHH that I apred .1 TE high, RN lish T1 and lat 1011 of the Gideo Eali far better than the ONI-inal LKN, -tli. H1111R, to I'm Padri Brin _ Thrower 11 YMBUDWLLH /VC1 earn 1ja, he app of T, H1, TNRHHRC1 LC1, NWREW1 delve then to LKNG.IL1. A 1M1, T11. Those NN, Y /HNHT /C10T all touch with the old Vikraniolar, 1TC 1.1. T111 and /1111, THL il / of the people, reading only EU1 NP and I'm Li, 11 at 1111 ER. The rest are quilkered by his Bengali TK to / high H they A1 E1L, LLAICU tomed and which, / hen rendered in English H, prayer, H1 peer, and more natural. The Muahad 1111 RCD mysticism of H1, Paknai, Hud.1 feeble Eiho of the MCSNC that the Upanishads have brought to 1. JL1, Lo, poems ha / only dink modi 1 NS, and leave ha 1 daily any 1111 PRCWN after one reading. If our country loses HCRCLF headlong 111 the sea of foreign cull to 1C, he will no doubt be the Harbin ERF the new Lissi 1 Ariage. But if otherwise, I am sure his fame will R.1 and 111 the annals of our literature he will be remembered only the head of one scroll that drew its inspiration from foreign sources. Huracan appreciation docs not weigh much with us. It only shows that he has a one RCL the poetical knack of saying things in such a way as will readily appeal to the European mind. 316 Appendix A There speaks the voice of honest and able conservatism, which it is always good to hear. The same critic adds, Bengal has not given Rabindranath to Europe, rather Europe has given him to the Bengalis. By praising him, European scholars prailed F their own gift. L would feel more proud and happy if our own poets bad received such fame in foreign countries. It is necessary for the outer world, trying to find what Rabindranath represents and where he stands, to know that such things were said by, at any rate, a minority of his own countrymen. In the rest of this book, all written before this letter reached me, I have indicated what seems to me the vernacular, and what the foreign, elements in his poetry and genius. He borrowed very largely, I.S. Virgil and Dante and Chaucer and Milton did, and it is part of his griotrnes, that he bast done so. When the grass is growing, over my conservative /e friend and myself, it will be I'll believe, that Rabindranath saved Bengali poetry, choked in its own tangles and convolutions, and enabled it to flower in sunlight and a oyster air, beside that highway which I the whole world's way. Appendix B Comparison of English and Bengali books. I thought at first of indicating the Bengali book from which each poem in his English books was taken, but that would be of little value, except to Bengalis. Instead, I give general results. They do not quite cover the books owing to the poet's freedom in translating, sources are often elusive. G1 Tanjal 1, Gitanjali 51, Gitama 17, Navatya 16, Ke 11, Sisu 3, Chaitai Ili, Smaran, Kalpani I, Utsarga, Acha/Yatan 1 each. The Gardener, Kashaniki 25, Kalpani I 16, Sonar Tari 9, Chaitai Ili and Utsarga 6 each, Chitrai 5, Maanasai and Ma'i Kila 3 each, Ke 2, Kari Okoma / Gidalai, and Si Iradatsa L each. The Crescent Moon, all but half a dozen from Sisu, Kari Okoma / 4, Sonar Tari and Gidama Alia L each. Frungatayuring, Gidalai 16, Gidama Alia 15, Baliaki I 14, Utiragate, Kathai I 6, Krai and Smaran 5 each, Chitrai and Navatya 2 each, Kalpani I, Gidanjia I, Raiji I, Maanasai, Kari Okoma / Akali Yatan 1 each, 3 are Derme Sanjit, /FYM 11s. Love KSG 11R and Cross 1 NG, Baliaki I and Kashaniki 14 each, KHC _Rai IO, Gidanjali and Gidama Alia 8 each, Navatya and Utsarga 7 each, Chitrai 5, Smaran, Gidalai. Chaitai Ili, Kalpa 11-4 each, Akali Yatan 3, Maanasai and Priya Skida 2 each, Kari Okoma / and Kini 1 each. At least 9 are Dlrme Sanjit. Tuesday Fumvi, Lipika at least 20, Maanasai, Sonar Tari and Chaitai Ili 7 each, Chitrai 5, Kshanika, Kahini and Palataki 4 each, Utsarga and Ba/Aka 3 each, Kari Okoma / and Smaran 2 each, Ke, Gidama Alia, Kathai, Vidya Abhijayap 1 each. 317 Appendix CTFIO / Ipso.Visu.Ters to Tagore, AFEJ, Relay.1 Anti-Extracts July 16.1920 I knew LU / Kriya grade PL1 ET, HUD 1 FOU don't mind my I1 NGSL, LHI Arkamud 1 GR at RLNCTH1 NL Trwug height your translated W, RKCL, LLLC, ILC / the / from one tradum or our poetry. But LUHI / C11L1T translated LRLC. It I, A11W, 11 US 11 TL, Rick. I11, E the EA thunder of its lines 111 the middle. Then A11 Yahai E1, Xcubbed, the picture of the coming of Alpha 1, Yule 1 me, and H that of Annapurna's house, the F1 RCWCLL2L car 11 and 011 R ZE site F / 10011 /IID ARC 110 LCS. LN Cly. If I ever do manage the book, I shall try to do pro, ETRRN Lottie LRN, of THCE, for illustration purpose. CRRN 11 Tand, BIDC the great passage which begins Lookeret 1U, poem. The mighty 111 / occasion of Venu. One people would think of you differently 111 the West 11 they knew THC, E poems. December 2, 12, 1920 IHA, E made a prose verion, keeping the -10 1A arrangement, of CNA.1I. Hervés I, of Kuri, untranslatable. But I feel sure that, even in my ER.WN, it will make an imam 1 MPRC ion all over the WLRLD. It is beyond question one of the very great -T lyrics ever WNT1E11. I can find RW fault RNLT. I am going to revolutionize the WC- turn notion of UA- a poet. September 3, 22, 1921 I think you are an extraordinarily great poet not only ixa, ionally, but again, an agam. I lo not see howen, thing I CFP. IJ, 318 Appendix C 319 can be better than Chitrayanjati I, Karna, and Kunthi, and the best Liri. S of Baliaki I and Kalpani I. L would engage to pick out at LCAT 300 poems which are first class a surprising achieve 1 MCNT. But do feel strongly that you have made it impossible for your work to be judged, and your true greatness seen why not let me try to help you. There are only 2 or 3 poets in the whole world's history with your achievement of glorious lyric and drama. Why new can now crown your work. And then, as Marcus Aurelius Harla voice say, depart in peace, for he that dismisses thee is content. April 4, 21, 1925 I am publishing a 32 pages booklet, of those Chatai I verse tran lat 10 ns, together with urva.si, sea waves, and 2 or 3 fragments from Kalpani I and Kaishaniki, with mythological notes on Hervés I, etc. This is in a series of 6 penny booklets, one of verse by living English poets U, Robert Bridges, Edmund Blunden, Arc the first 3. I am general editor, and I am anxious to havc a small selection from you in the first half dajn, because the first volume will attract enormous attention. My va.ions though I say to myself are good and close. Macmillans have consented to let me include 5 of your own Gita 11 jolly pieces, but one think, on the whole, it may be better to keep a 11 in verse. January 5, 14. 1934 It ha, given me predict one lar pleasure to get your book 2 for 2 RCA on PCR onal, because it seems to suggest that you are RCV1111G your belief that I have been, or am, or even shall be, an enemy of your people. But it gave me pleasure also, because you tend for a new kind of man, neither Eastern, nor WC.TCRN but a reconciler of the best of both. There is a Humani.M which accepts both East and West, and gives us the Augustan books of modern poetry Vishal 320 Appendix Hope of the City of God someday living in our midst. Art Mohan Roy, Rabindranath Tagore one have never made any mistake about the succession. 6 December 7, 1934 Umayya one and I spent an evening, this last week, doing a preliminary look over your books of translated verse. He is sending you our suggestions. I also saw Macmillan's, and they tell me they intend to set the whole book 2 up afresh, so that expense need not be considered. I.e. You have a free hand to retranslate, add do anything you like. Macmillan's particularly wants some new verses as well. I have suggested to Umayya places where I think yt0 greatly enrich a poem by adding sages which you formerly omitted. You should. Ithmk, be more particular, Anu not so general. G1elb the actual names of trees and flower, etc. There, nothing wrong in anixa, ional note giving us a GL 1111 PSE of the association the LNC.L1 and name have gamed. For example, your delightful poem in Case Luniki, in Kali Jaa. Day Haj I been born H old BGI, and th at I.1, not watered down. I give you brief note and explain what Indian Latlaks did with the one look a tree, etc. 111 old LJ 111. 2. I think you can be more literal often. Why not call that poem the gar, angle /fr, jr, // what 1t1. And not the gardener. UNMS a lot of 1b pomp by using the latter term. O:*ca1 only we have an English translation which you /e preferred not to use, Thursday, halkli paki I /in or iol. What to do with those splendid her plays of yours puzzles me. They are all so noble and in such different ways. Yet only Karna and Kunthi seems to me adequately translated. I suggest omitting them for the present, to CC1F later you could put together a small volume of them. Stray birds I howled keep about half of. I often know the originals, that is, when they are from Kanaki I1, and so hesitate Umayya Chakravarli collected poems and plays of Rabindranath Tagore Appendix 321 at the English, for I remember how pointed and fine the Benli is. If you take from an epigram its clothing of verse, it often looks disappointing. The Greek anthos/jgy has proved Tjalis, over and over again. March 7, 22, 1935 I will tell Umayya to hurry up with that omnibus edition of your poetry, and when that comes out I will seize it as the peg on which to hang an article. It will be a pleasure to do it, and I will see to it that readers are made to realize the immense field you have covered and the way your interests have marched from width to width. For recent publications whose nifi.c. Ants I may have missed, if Prasunta one cares to send me a note of them sometime, I will work it in, with special stress on the way your own people feel about them. Or will try to do something really good. I think this will be better than an article hung on a birthday anniversary. April 8, 16, 1935 Umayya tell me you have sent him some new poems which Sturge thinks first rate. I am eager to see them. Plakasi do not give up hope. You have fought a magnificent hat, see, after all, you have educated a lot of typical lone buoy like myself. And this will be understood someday. April 9, 28, 1935 Please do not do your translations injustice. Gitanjali is a hook haunted by your personality, a new book and not a translation, and a permanently lovely one. Chitra is another perfect work of art. The poems in the gardener and fruit gathering arc, many of them fine, so is your version of Karna Mu/Kunthi. I am sure a fine selection can be made. When the book is out, I will do a Times literary supplement leader that will stress also the very fine quality of your best fictions. I Prasuntachandra Mahalanobis 322 Appendix C. Am sure that there is no greater short story writer in the world's literature than you. Your stories suffered because they came out during the worst period of the war. May 10, 8, 1937 I just want to say that I have yesterday read a poem won by you in The Spectator. It struck me as very powerful in both thought and impression and every bit as modern as any of our admired young lions now roaring in the breakup of Western Sea. Illustration. To Africa.